Well, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us today. I'm delighted to be joined by three fantastic thought leaders and panelists today. I have Maren Perry, founder and CEO of Arden Coaching, who brings deep expertise in scaling coaching organisations whilst maintaining coaching quality, emotional intelligence, and personalised leadership development. I also have Shannon Susko, the CEO and founder of Metronomics, specializing in business growth systems, operational scale, and helping organizations build sustainable leadership and organization maturity. And I also have Ursula Connolly, CEO and founder of People Skills Business, whose work focuses on human centered leadership, psychological safety, trust, feedback cultures, and meaningful connection in leadership development. So I really can't wait to dive in. Welcome, everybody, to today's panel discussion.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Delenta. Thrilled to be here.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Fabulous. Well, look, I'm going to start off with just a little sort of quick warm-up question. And just sort of maybe think about sharing from your perspective, just very quickly, what's one major shift that you're currently seeing, maybe in executive coaching or leadership development, that feels particularly significant right now? Ursula, if you don't mind, I'll come to you first.
Thanks, Sharon. Really lovely to be here. I think what we're noticing is, in terms of our coaching clients, the amount of uncertainty they're dealing with and trying to navigate a world where everybody wants everything faster, quicker, cheaper. And as leaders, they're trying to deal with a huge transformation and change, as well as deal with their own emotional challenges and whatever they want to do. From a client perspective, we're seeing a lot more demand for return on investments. So how will coaching really add value to my organization, and why is it worth it?
Fascinating. It's that magic return of investment, which is sometimes the sweet spot, isn't it, for organizations? Maren, I'm going to come to you. Same question, actually. What's a major shift that you're currently seeing?
Well, I would echo what Ursula said. I think the amount of uncertainty that our clients are navigating is greater than ever. It feels like greater than ever. It may just be faster than ever, that the uncertainty is one form of uncertainty followed by the next thing. But I also think that organizations are looking for coaching to be more strategic and deployed at a more measurable, strategic, thoughtful level. It's no longer about, one leader here and one leader there, but really creating more organizational capacity.
Yeah, fascinating. Shannon, what would you add from your perspective?
Yeah, so I would agree with Maren and Ursula, and I would take it sort of one step further. With the coaching world, it's like, how do we apply AI to it? That's one of the things. And with the uncertainty out there, it's how to apply. With clients, it's a how as well. They don't want to be left behind.
Isn't that the truth? For sure. I'll stick with you if you don't mind, Shannon, because I'm quite interested in just sort of unpicking that a little bit more, because we hear a lot about AI transforming organisations, productivity, ways of working. It's sort of everywhere, isn't it? But beneath that, I think you were starting to sort of really lean into that. Sort of leadership itself is also changing.
Yeah.
So, what are you seeing in what organizations are now expecting from their leaders?
Yeah, I love that question. Over probably a year or two ago, we started, with our clients, coaches before that, but with our clients, sort of leaning in to learn about, AI and what's going on, right, within that. What we are actually, seeing even further, we then, did a lot of work with the CEOs of the teams to get their heads around it, to get them open to it, to understand it. And the more we saw the CEOs lean in on the learning, the more they wanted to learn, the more their leaders wanting to learn, all the way to the fact now that when we see teams put out a new leadership role, it absolutely includes knowledge and willingness and wanting to learn and apply AI, right? It's 100% in the mix now. And even if I take it one step further, we're seeing functionally within organizations, whether it's a marketing function, sales function, ops, finance, dev, the requirement to actually start learning and building the agents and sub-agents to go with it. And when we think of us as coaches of clients, we're looking at almost a whole new design of an organization and an organizational structure.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about when you bring all of those elements together, it really gets us to reflect on sort of ensuring that we as coaches can keep up to
Yes.
ensure that we're going to be current to
Yeah.
support the
Yeah.
organization for sure. Brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that was the biggest push of like just getting out in front. Like I always say, we have, if you're coaching, you have 1, 2, 3 clients, like you got to run out in front. And so it was really that urgency of doing that.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Maren, what about from your perspective? What would you add to what Shannon's just said?
Well, I think that leaders are being asked to do more and more and know more across many different topics, including AI, right? They somehow now have to incorporate expertise in AI into any leadership role, right? They were probably promoted because they were good at something they used to do. They may not have even had leadership training or experience or skill. And now they also have to be great at AI and somehow figuring out how their leaders are going to incorporate AI employees with human employees and how they're going to integrate these very different ways of working. You cannot speak to your AI agent the way that you can speak to a human, and vice versa, most importantly, right? So, you have to have now some incredible flexibility and diversity of skill sets that I think, sometimes does not serve the focus of their role. It's just too broad what people are being asked to do, and then navigate the uncertainty on top of it is just really, I think, taxing many leaders beyond where they feel capable, like beyond where they feel they have any experience or sufficient knowledge to be able to keep up with all of that at the same time.
It's so insightful. And Ursula, from the work that you do, and I'm just sort of thinking around the area of psychological safety and all of those things, where do you see all of this sort of AI transformation and the expectation of organizations from its leaders affecting maybe the areas that you specialize in?
I think leaders are being asked more and more to drive the change, drive the transformational change. So I think the level of power, where the decision-making powers become devolved. And so I think leaders are expected to be decision makers. They're expected to be using these tools and to be ahead of the game, if you like. They don't always get the safety nets. So I see a lot of leaders are still very much afraid to fail, because maybe failure, although maybe the C-suite say it's okay to fail, but then when it comes down to it, there can be repercussions. So we work a lot with leaders, helping them to influence upwards and to make sure that they're very clear on what they're being asked to do, what the expectation of success is, and how it will be measured, so that they're not just rummaging around in the darkness, that there's clear parameters around the change. And the other thing that we're working with in terms of leadership is very simple, but it's about rigorously prioritizing. A lot of leaders, as Maren said, are being asked to do more and more. And we try to encourage them to ask themselves, what are we going to stop doing? If we're going to do A, then, you know, are we going to stop C and D? And really helping them to work through that.
I think that sort of brings me on to an area that I'm quite fascinated on, really, because AI is definitely increasingly, certainly from my perspective and from what I've heard from all of you so far, entering the coaching and the leadership development space. You know, it's there. Ursula, where do you see AI genuinely adding value? Because you were talking about, you know, what are you going to stop doing? So, you know, where do you see AI genuinely adds value?
Where I think it's brilliant is synthesizing themes, organizational themes. So, for example, if there are a particular category of coachees that they're going through transformation, and AI can pick up where the themes are coming across, what they're struggling with. So that's one area that's really powerful. And we can feed back those themes to the organization, which will then help them with other interventions they may need to offer. The second one is around between coaching sessions, where the coach can use AI to nudge the coachee, send them reflective prompts, and really, I think it helps them to be more accountable as well, because we use the Delenta platform and we really are quite rigorous about encouraging the coachees to record their goals, and then the coach can revisit those. So that's all so helpful from our perspective.
Yeah, and I have a real sort of passion around AI actually elevating sort of humans and certainly us as coaches to be able to, you know, to really focus on it sort of amplifies our brilliance in a way. It sort of takes away all the stuff that perhaps we don't really need to do. What I'm quite interested in through your work at Arden Coaching, Maren, is where do you believe human coaching becomes even more important because of AI?
Well, I think AI is commoditizing the things that are not as essentially human, right? That aggregating data, I had people doing that, and now, you know, AI allows them to do it so much faster. And I agree with Ursula, it can recognize patterns across massive amounts of data that is incredibly helpful and time saving. But I think what that does is it makes the human even more coveted. If you think about a world where all the data is handled, where the nonsense is handled, the logistical pieces are no longer where you need to focus, what do you covet? You covet connection, you covet time with your family, you covet, real human elements. And so I think that it might take us a little while to swing to that. Everyone's now interested in all the toys and all the tools, and that's great. We should, explore what they can do. But I think ultimately that brings us back to hearing from a human being who understands your story and understands where you've been and your history, that, you have seen something in a new way, or someone who asks you a question that, AI is terrible at innovating. AI will tell you everything that has ever been said previously, no problem, but it cannot tell you the next thing that will be said, right? It is not an innovator. Only humans can do that. And so asking that innovative, probing, powerful, challenging question is something that is transformational. We've all experienced that. And that's the place where I think the human-centered coaching thrives, because we can get rid of all the, reminders and the stuff the agents can do, but only you can have that true connection with the human.
I love that, and 100% aligned with what you're saying there. Shannon, thank you for waiting so patiently for me to come to you. I'm really interested from your perspective as well around, maybe some areas that you would like to bring to the conversation around either adding value and or the human being more important as a result of the AI.
Yeah, well, I love what Maren was talking about, the human, the connection, all of those pieces. And when we're working with organizations to, create their strategy, create that cohesiveness, all of that is all around people. And where AI has been playing in, AI can play in to help sort of really, take the data and drive a little bit more confidence in what the strategy might be or what's going on in the market. But it really comes back to the team itself, the leadership team itself, and the coaching that's available to actually come together to agree on that one thing. When Ursula was talking about the priorities, right? And having the priorities, and AI sort of, speeds it up, right? But it's around getting rid of the noise and getting really focused on where you want to go. And AI is such a great way to do that, both for strategy, for execution, can get rid of a lot of the noise, but we have to be clear on where we're going. And when we think about bringing a leadership team together and coaching that leadership team, we coach the leadership team. And that's what Metronomics says, our coaches, we coach the whole leadership team together. So when we apply AI, we think of it strategy. Yes, if you have a strategy, you can apply AI. And then you have an execution plan, you can apply AI. But if you don't have clarity on any of that, it's the humans that are going to come together, that are going to agree and be confident in the direction. And I think that's the most exciting thing we're seeing. It's not that AI is going to replace any of the human connection. It's just not. It's actually, going to help focus it in. And as coaches, we can help focus that in and make sure that the application is there, whether it was anything, AI or any other application we need to apply to the strategy and execution in an organization.
Love that. Love that. Now, there's a lot of excitement around AI making coaching more scalable and accessible. I wonder, though, if there's a danger that organisations start to prioritise efficiency over depth. If that does happen, what could leadership development maybe lose as a result, do you think? Sorry, Shannon, sticking with you.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Well, I think, if we lean into that, I think what it loses is the way the cohesiveness and the way a team comes together, right? A high performing team, if there's more than one person, right? Two or more is a team, and you can lose it along the way, right? And we use technology. We've been using technology in our businesses all along the way to improve how we coach, how we actually present plans, how we do most things. But at the end of the day, it's actually leaning in to ensure the connection's there. And you could lose it. It's easy, more so in the hybrid remote world than ever. But it's the connection that we have to keep together. And, when I think about that from a coaching perspective, it's AI doesn't replace the coaching, right? AI doesn't replace that, because what needs to be there always is that connection. If we look at it in any, we look at it from, we implement a system within, and most coaches have a system, but the system is reliant upon people and the connection in people. And so, no matter what, we can leverage the AI to improve what I always call the layer one things, all the layer one noise that, either we were reluctantly doing or not, right? Right? We can replace that, we can get smart, but it's the connection, the expertise in the humans. It's human plus AI, human plus anything. And then I've been adding in it's team plus AI.
Yeah, and that absolutely makes total sense, and I really like that. Ursula, I'm really keen just to get your perspective with the work that you do, people skills. Because I was talking to a colleague the other day, and we were talking about AI and the fast moving world in organizations and stuff, and we were chewing over the concept of faster but less reflective. So, yes, AI helps leaders to move faster, make decisions maybe quicker, definitely process more information, maybe faster. But I wonder if there's a risk that leaders become more reactive and less reflective as a result. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it can definitely impact creativity because people can go to whatever you know system that they want. They'll type in a question, they get an answer, and then they won't always think it through. They'll just take it at face value. So I think it's really important to have protocols in organizations around how AI is used, and to encourage people to interrogate what the information they get back, and to push AI to, as much as possible, to improve their thinking. So I think there is a risk of losing some creativity, and also, yeah, understanding. Do I really understand this idea that I'm thinking about, and thinking about the impact that that might have on the organization? That's what we experience. And the other thing, just picking up on what Shannon said about how teams use it, I think it's really important also to have protocols around how it's used in relationships. So I had a story the other day where a leader shared that they had submitted a legal document. They're a lawyer, and they submitted a legal document to one of their VPs. And the VPs put the legal document through AI and then came back with a whole load of corrections. And the lawyer was like, oh, are you correcting my homework? So it created some tension in their relationship. Yeah, where the lawyer felt that this was not appropriate. So I think it's important to have some, role or protocols around how it's used to protect the relationships within the team, and that it's very clear when AI is used and how it's used.
That makes total sense. Total sense. Maren, from your perspective, is there a risk of leaders becoming more reactive and less reflective?
Oh gosh, well, I'll just speak for myself. When I put something into a large language model and it comes back with something, I think that unless I have been really rigorous, to Ursula's point about what I put in,
Yeah.
I can get back complete nonsense and think it's okay, right? So I think that it is absolutely a danger, that we are in danger of becoming more reactive, less creative. And I think not recognizing the 1+1=3-ness of what a team is, or what that coaching and individual client relationship is. There is something in that dynamic that is greater than the sum of its parts. And if you substitute a part for AI, you do not get that additive element. So, it's not going to tell you that the person that you sit next to on the team or that you report to is inappropriate in their language to you, or that that person has bad breath, or that person always shows up late to the meetings, right? That whole element of what exists between people, to Shannon's point about what a team is. When we're working with a team, that's the discovery. The discovery process isn't about, what's someone's function and, what is the rule about how you communicate. The questions are all about how do you actually communicate and what is really happening and who is the person who always dominates the conversation, or, those things. AI is not going to produce that kind of reflection. So I think we have to be judicious, absolutely use it. It's a fabulous tool, but, I know I will speak for myself. You have to be careful not to be lazy. Right? It's too easy to be lazy and not discriminating in your thinking and not giving it, 90% of the stuff up front for it to tweak, as opposed to asking it to build 90% and, you put your stamp on it somehow.
Yeah. It's great at stroking your ego as well, isn't it? Saying how brilliant you are.
You're the most brilliant thing it's ever seen, right? But what you need is your teammate who's going to say, yeah, you know what? Not so brilliant. Yeah.
I love that. Let's take it back to coaching, just staying with you there. What do you believe, where the role of coaching um, plays in helping leaders to slow down so that they can slow down enough to be more reflective and think well, and maybe use that sort of all important critical thinking?
Well, I think what we've talked about in terms of getting the mundane, right, off your to-do list, as long as you're not being indiscriminate, to Ursula's point, right? Like you can't just add, okay, now I'm going to add all these things. I do have to prioritize and get some things off. But you're asking about where the coaching is the most valuable in an organization?
Yeah, the role that coaching plays in slowing leaders down to be more reflective so
I
we
think it's
don't
about
become
how,
more reactive.
oh, sorry. I think it's about how they are coaching their people, right? The skills, and not that your job as a coaching client is to learn how to coach others, but a lot of leaders are working on empowering, developing, motivating their teams, and those are all coaching skills. So I think that it being coached as a leader allows you to start to understand the importance of that mindset and the filters through which you make decisions. And thereby, when you're coaching your team and motivating and empowering your team, you're starting to look at how they think of things and how your ability to coach them will grow them, which gets things off of your plate. And I think it's a long cycle, right? That's not an instant cycle, but I think getting those coaching skills into leaders' hands so that they can use them with their teams allows them to elevate and get out of the weeds.
Yeah, brilliant. And talking teams, Shannon, as that sort of your area. What role
Yeah.
does coaching play there in helping the whole team to slow down and not just sort of act quickly and speed up?
Yeah, I think, the greatest gift my coach gave me as a CEO back in the day was what we call the coach cascade system. And his role was to grow me into a coach. And my role as CEO was to grow my leaders into a coach. And their role was to grow their leaders into a coach, and so on. And so we call this the coach cascade. And the only way you can do that is if you have clarity of what's on what we call the scorecard for that leader. Does it align with the priorities, the plan of the organization? And does it also align with their own personal development? And when you have that review, you have that view, and you're doing it in a cadence of every 90 days, that's what, like I held my leaders to, they held their leaders to, married in with a weekly one-on-one, that is there for coaching and nothing more. That clarity allowed the team to grow together, right? And the coach cascade is what we actually call it, for the team to actually get rid of the noise and to stay focused on.
Brilliant. I love that. Coach cascading. Yeah. That's got a really good ring to it. I really love that. I love that. So just sort of building on that a little bit more, Shannon, organizations, including teams, they're increasingly wanting coaching to be scalable, right?
Yeah.
And right at the beginning we were talking, I think it was Ursula spoke about return of investment.
Yeah.
And ultimately it's all about being operationally efficient. So in your experience, what have you seen around how coaching organizations grow and scale without losing trust and intimacy and that important human connection, so that the coaching transformation is upfront and right in the forefront?
Yeah, and I would carry on with the coach cascade, and I sort of touched on it. It's really about a cadence and presetting the cadence, right? Like that's the connection time, that's the time we have, but we actually implement a cadence that goes into the organization. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. With what I learned in growing my first company, it was about the cadence. It actually gave us time back in our week, which sounds crazy when you're in a high growth scale mode and growing a company, but it gives you time back. And the whole, one of the whole reasons why Metronomics even exists is because that time back allowed us to actually spend time coaching. As leaders, when we get time back and we're not in the business, we're working on the business, we have time to coach. And so you have actually time to interact with your coach, and then you have time to grow yourself into a coach and so on. And it sounds like a fairy tale, but it's the cadence, it's the rhythm of how you connect with your team and your coach, because, everyone has a coach in the organization. And that's the thing that unlocked it all for us. And, it got rid of the noise and got really focused on where we were going.
Mm.
I really love that as a model, actually, around everybody having a coach and, and cascading down coaching approach, etc. And it just, it's accessible then to everybody, not just C-suite. And yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, for sure. Maren, just sort of building on what Shannon is saying. Apologies, Shannon.
It's okay, Sharon.
It's too close to my own name. That's the problem. What do you sort of see in your experience around growth and scale without losing the trust and intimacy?
Yeah, I think it's about multimodality. I think that we have so many great tools, AI and otherwise, quite frankly, just the fact that we're having this panel in this way, right? 10 years ago, we wouldn't have done it this way. We would have waited for some conference and all sat on a stage with really uncomfortable chairs, and right, it would have been a very different thing. So I think that we have lots of tools at our disposal where, yes, one-on-one individual coaching is part of it. We have leadership development programs that incorporate group coaching, cohort coaching, individual coaching, different modules that are delivered in different ways, depending on the organization and what the topic is. So I think when you're talking about scalability, it needs to be flexible enough that it can meet different organizations where they are, right? Not everyone is going to have a one-on-one coach, even for the C-suite. Not everyone gets their own individual one-on-one time. So what can you do using all the tools available to us to touch people as many times as possible? Because really, behavior theory, human learning, adult learning theory, all talk about how important it is to have all of those touches. So we're always looking to build in as many touches as possible, even if it's in different modalities, because that's going to be the most scalable. It's going to give you the greatest return on your leadership development dollars. I think the danger is when companies are taking all those dollars and putting them into the most scalable but least human version. And I don't mean to speak badly of any particular organization, but I think it's a risk when you see how many people you can touch, right? But you're doing it with something that is not necessarily the most valuable modality. So how can you intersperse that in order to get the most out of it without losing, to your point, Sharon, the human element that is going to be the most transformational?
Yeah, and that to me sounds like a real sort of danger of scaling coaching too quickly and not looking at the things that are the most important steps to get right first. As you say, too many touch points, but not the right touch points can then, as a result, maybe have an adverse effect, which is a real shame, because it's just lovely to be able to have that element of what Shannon was saying about, the cascading down, for sure. Yeah. Sticking with you there around, let's dive into a little bit more around leadership development then, because we know, certainly in my experience, it's been traditionally focused quite heavily on capability and, sort of performance, sort of around their development as a leader. We know, we mentioned right from the start, that some people are promoted because they were good at a job, not necessarily people management as a job. I'd be really interested to get your perspective on the future of leadership development, if it will require maybe a deeper focus on emotional intelligence or self-awareness or human connection.
I think everything starts with self-awareness and emotional intelligence. You can't talk about executive presence and influence if you don't have a sense of that self-awareness and emotional intelligence. So I think there is a progressive journey to leadership development when it's taught, as a whole. I think a lot of organizations are coming in midstream, can you fill this individual need, this particular gap we've identified? Like, well, we can, but you may want to think about a larger journey so that you don't have just a gap in one spot. It's critical. I think that emotional intelligence piece will always be there because we are dealing with humans. If you sit dealing with only computers, only AI all day, maybe you don't need as much, right? But for most of us, that is just not true. And it won't be true probably for most people for quite some time or ever, right? So human beings require an understanding of what it is to be human in order to interact with them. So I think it's an essential part of being a human in an organization, and especially if you're a leader of the organization. So I don't think that goes away. I think it's just how we talk about it and integrate it and make sure that we are being realistic about what someone's job actually looks like, right? They're interacting with AI agents maybe, but also human beings. Those take very different things.
Sure. Ursula, this feels like this is right in your sweet spot around focusing on emotional intelligence and human connection. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I really subscribe to what Maren said. I think absolutely self-awareness is critical. I also see a real lean towards awareness of the system that they're operating in, so that they're not operating in isolation, that they've got to be able to see themselves as one part of a much larger system and organization. And how do I navigate that? So not only for my current team, my own team, but how do myself and my team interact with other teams and with the C-suite and with shareholders and with clients? So I think we see coaches needing to think bigger than themselves. That's what we see as a real trend. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think maybe organisations might be overlooking when it comes to preparing their leaders for the future? Ursula.
I think they are overlooking human capacity. I think there is a huge expectation for what a leader can deliver. And a lot of organizations talk about, well, I think they have an expectation that people will just figure it out. And I don't think there's always the support, the tangible support provided.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. And I think it's just sort of as we start to sort of move towards wrapping up, unfortunately wrapping up our discussion, because it's been absolutely fascinating. I just want to start to sort of maybe come full circle and talk about maybe the coach's own evolution, because we know AI and organizational sort of expectations to evolve. Coaches themselves also need to evolve, and we started to look at this right at the beginning, didn't we? So, Ursula, just starting with you, and then I'll come to Shannon, and then to yourself, Maren. What capabilities, maybe mindsets or approaches, do you believe, from your experience, executive coaches will need to develop over the next few years, really, to remain maybe relevant and certainly impactful?
So I think two things. One is to not be afraid of AI, to learn, go out there, experiment, learn, fail, learn again, and just really get to grips with it. And be open to learning. I think Maren or Shannon said that earlier. The second thing is to not only think about the emotional and psychological part of the coaching, but also I think be more commercial, be up to date with global economics, global politics, global social changes, and really bring that to their coaching sessions. So not to only be an expert in coaching, but also to be a commercially aware business expert. I think that will really lend a huge amount to the quality of their coaching.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And Maren, when you think about how, we need to evolve as coaches, what excites you most where opportunities are concerned?
Oh, great question. I think this forefront of how we marry our emotional intelligence expertise and our understanding of how humans operate on a team or in a system, and how we marry that with new tools and new capabilities to, as we were saying earlier, shore up our ability to have that human connection so that we are integrating them but not substituting. We're using it to build a foundation that the human piece can sit on. That's probably what I'm most excited about, and I think coaches will have to integrate a lot of learning and tools to be able to do that effectively.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you've brought that to for as an example. And Shannon, finally, just from your perspective and thinking about the coach's own evolution, what do you
Yeah,
believe?
I mean, the biggest thing I believe is AI won't and it will not change what great coaching is.
Mm,
It will make it impossible to fake it. And in order to, it like truly, right? Because of everything, Maren, you talked about awareness and connection, and Ursula around, who the people are in it, right? It just makes it impossible to fake great coaching, and impossible actually as we look forward as coaches to actually scale and transform the teams we're working with without a system. And I think Maren, you touched on that. Ursula, you touched on that, right? It like the one-off coach coming in will have a harder time in this world we're in. But when we put it together in a system, and the system's creating that behavioral accountability and that awareness of behavioral accountability.
just love that, and look at where we all are now.
Yeah,
Look at where we all are now.
exactly.
Incredible. What an amazing conversation. I can't believe that we're at 45 minutes already. It's just gone really quickly. I think what stands out for me the most is that whilst executive coaching and leadership development continues to evolve, particularly with AI and technology, there's a real focus on the human to human connection. My thanks to Maren and Sharon and Ursula for sharing their perspectives and experiences so openly. Thank you all so much. It has been incredible. And thank you to everyone who has joined us through the Delenta community and partner networks. It's been a real pleasure to host this conversation and to meet all three of you. But from me, from Shannon, Maren, and Ursula, and from the whole team here at Delenta, thanks very much. And we really hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much